So good morning. When our congregation changed its bylaws in late January, the minister became responsible for supporting initiatives started by members. Concerned about the impact that change would have on the work of social justice and outreach going forward, a group of us, with John Davies, the former executive lead of the social justice on the executive team, met with Reverend Ed to ask him, so, how was he going to support social justice going forward? Reverend Ed encouraged us to take our passion for social justice and form a team. He suggested that we could be the lead group, a challenge that we accepted. We needed a charter describing what we wanted to do. For his part, he agreed to devote a Sunday service a month in the next 3 months to address our social justice work. So, we have created a Social Justice and Outreach Council. We have a new charter. We have committed team leads, many of whom are in the roles that they've already been in. And we also have a list of activities that we want to make available to you, our congregation members. That is, everyone in this room. Okay? So our new charter for the Social Justice and Outreach Council promotes social justice, equity, and compassion through our words and our actions. The council uses the time, resources, and leadership of its members, again, that's you, all right, to do the following 3 things: to forge connections with area and statewide leaders who are seeking systemic change. Second, to provide needed services to our community. And third, to strengthen our web of connection to the earth and all of its inhabitants. So, we have 7 outreach teams with leads who will introduce themselves in just a minute. Okay, and each team provides a needed service. All right, and we are also fortunate to have with us UU Justice PA, which is a statewide organization of Unitarian Universalist congregations. And that organization seeks systemic change throughout the state by bringing our UU voice and values to Harrisburg. Now, UU Justice has 7 different justice teams. 3 of them are represented by representatives of our church. We have 4 other teams that are looking for leadership that one of you could step forward and provide. Okay, so in talking about social justice, probably the biggest thing is saving our democracy and the upcoming November election. We believe that when everybody votes, progressives win. While we as a church will not take positions about who to support, we will be bringing you ways to join us in increasing voter turnout. We will bring you nonpartisan opportunities for postcard and letter writing, phone banking, and canvassing. We believe that our UU the Vote actions have influenced the results of the last election cycles going all the way back to 2020. Now, to work more effectively, we need to learn what your interests are in social justice. So we've got a couple of things in your handout. First is a description of our council and also what the outreach teams are, and on the back, what UU Justice, the teams that it has. Then, even though we didn't hand out pencils, we have a survey for you to complete. That these are the issues that you're interested in joining us and working on. So please fill out the survey and put it in the basket on the way out. And thank you, Sam, for affirming that. So I'd now like to introduce the teams that we've created. Would you all step forward?
Hi. Whoops, it's loud. My name is Sharon Fichtorn. I've already said that this morning. I, with 4 other people, shop for and deliver food to the Media Food Bank every Thursday. That's 52 weeks of deliveries. And for a year, that means we deliver 7,800 pounds of potatoes, carrots, and onions to support the Media Food Bank. They are the largest distributor of food in Delaware County, serving about 165 plus families each week. People in this congregation can help us by bringing non-perishable items and putting them in that big wooden box you'll find in the lobby, or joining our team of shoppers and people who deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, I'm Barbara Keckler, and I'm representing the Hunger Task Force. We're also concerned with food. What we do is once a month, we deliver a complete dinner for 2 homeless shelters, Breaking Bread in Upper Darby, which is a drop-in shelter that allows pets and partners and possessions and wheelchairs, which a lot of shelters don't do. And the Life Center of Upper Darby, which is a more traditional shelter. Anyway, what we do, when I say we, I have 45 people on my email list. We make a dinner. We have many generous donors. And then Don and I take it to the shelters and we serve it at the Life Center. So we only do that once a month. Other churches do it too, and if we didn't do it, they wouldn't get dinner. So it's a wonderful activity. It's wonderful for us.
Thank you, Barbara.
Many generous donors.
So I've got, would you give it to Lisa, please? So I've got a deal worked out with Reverend Ed that these introductions will be short.
All right, I'll keep on very short. I'm Lisa Rosenberger. I and Barry Torgan Randall are basically restarting the climate action team. We're looking into ways to make the church greener and have a lower carbon footprint, and also to partner with other organizations.
Thank you, Lisa.
To work on climate change.
I'm David Lehman, this morning representing the Thresholds Prison Education Program. As you know, we live in a country and a state with infamous rates of mass incarceration. While UU Justice PA, we work to change that. There are also opportunities to support, encourage, and empower folks living inside Delaware County prisons. I have a thank you and an invitation. The thank you is to Alec Fenyes for keeping the UUCDC connection live for a long time. Lisa Rosenberger, Kurt Volunteer. The invitation is to the Spotlight Luncheon today, 12:15, downstairs in the chapel. A chance to learn about the program, have some good food from Everybody Eats in Chester.
I'm Neil Goldstein, co-chair of the UU Justice Pennsylvania Good Government Team, which isn't anywhere near as boring as it sounds. Its mission is to help drag the state legislature into the 21st century by becoming much more fair, honest, and representative of all Pennsylvanians. Our top priority this legislative session is to stop allowing lobbyists to bestow unlimited gifts on lawmakers. That's right, unlimited gifts, I'm not kidding. And that's a practice that right now is perfectly legal.
Hi, I'm Natasha Davis, and I am coordinating our Share the Plate program.
Marge Caton, and I manage the adoptive family program at Christmas time, and we brought joy to families for 40 years, over 300 families in Delaware County.
Hi, I'm Jeff Kowalski, and my wife Mary sitting here, and I have participated in various social justice activities through the church, but particularly we work to promote attendance at meetings of FUSE, F-U-S-E, Fellowship of Urban Suburban Engagement. This is a group where it's multicultural and from across the county, where people from many parts of Delaware County gather together for courageous conversations about how to reduce racism and promote justice in our area.
Hi, I'm here on behalf of the Anti-Racism Coalition, which strives to understand the roots of racism and promote justice and equity in our congregation, our community, and our country. We hold anti-racism and allyship virtual meetings and discussions every month, and we are working to see that our congregation is widening the reach of justice and equity here and in the larger community. We invite you to get involved.
I'm Marta Sleeper, and I represent UUCDC one Tuesday a month on the UU Justice Economic Justice phone call. This coming Tuesday is our next phone call. We are working to raise the minimum wage, fund education fully for our public schools. We're working for affordable health care, union rights, and affordable housing. On May 8th, we will have an advocacy day in Harrisburg to support the increase to funding of public schools proposed by Governor Shapiro in this year's budget. Please join us on Tuesday to see other legislative proposals we are supporting. And if you want to go to Harrisburg on May 8th, please talk to me about it.
Hi, I'm Susan Rubenstein. I represent UUCDC on the UU Justice PA Reproductive Justice calls.
Thank you very much. You've got the survey in front of you, and you have the opportunity to get involved in any or all of these programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that beautiful song. And Bill, thank you and your council members for all your dedicated work. And it's so impressive to see all of you spread out here and grasp the breadth and depth of what you're doing. And I salute you, and I respect you, and I appreciate you for this vital work. While I have been interim minister, I have been obsessively focused on the internal functioning of the congregation, and I have not really spoken once about social action, and it is not through an aversion or a disrespect for that area, but it's more about what was needed for the congregation. But now we're leveling out and stabilizing, hopefully, and it's time to get down to the business of those things that are really important. And one of them is social action work. And so my pledge to you is that through the duration of my time as interim minister, I would like each Sunday there to be at least one Sunday dedicated to the work of social action, to highlight what you're doing and to provide opportunities for people to join you in what you're doing. And let me underline the fact that these folks that were standing before you are, because of their life situation or their experience, they have a particular depth of commitment to these issues, but what they need is support from you, the people, to make their action alive, and they will provide you with ideas for what to do and how to do it, but they do need your help, and that gives wings to their work, and it is very essential that you participate. I am no historian, but I have, and there's an historian, at least one, present with us, but my reading of history has told me again and again that like Reverend Martin Luther King said, that change does not come in on the wings of inevitability, that what happens to make things happen is a group of people, always a small group of people, stand up and say, this is something that needed to be done. And earlier I've spoken about beliefs and principles and the importance of that. Well, you can look at every social reformer in history, and it is always someone who had clear, compelling, and strong beliefs and principles and stood up and said, society is not in accord with what it should be, and we as a group of people need to do something about it. And every single time, the mass of society did not understand them or disregarded them or showed indifference toward them, but they soldiered on and stood up for what they believed based on their principles and made a difference. And if you look at the history of Unitarian Universalism, it is permeated, it is filled with people who stood up based on principle and made an impact on the society of their times. For example, we can go all the way back to Judith Murray, who was a pioneering writer, born 1751, an advocate for women's rights way back in that time, and a member of the first Universalist church in America. Her essay, written and published in 1790, was entitled On the Equality of the Sexes, something very far and ahead of its time. Theodore Parker was one of the early Unitarian ministers, and he was one of the people who, along with William Ellery Channing and Ralph Waldo Emerson, really put a big stamp on the character of the Unitarian movement. He was born in 1810. He unfortunately only lived to 50 years of age. He was a Unitarian minister whose words and popular quotations would later inspire the speeches of Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. He, in Boston, led a movement to combat the strict Fugitive Slave Act, something that he thought to be morally reprehensible. And at the danger of his reputation and his safety, he stood up for the freedom of slaves, of people who had been enslaved. He was involved in almost all of the reform movements of his time, including peace, education, the condition of women, penal legislation, and what he called the moral and mental destitution of the rich. An interesting phrase. The moral and mental destitution of the rich, and the physical destitution of the poor. He denounced the Mexican War and was involved in many other issues. Elizabeth Stanton, born 1815, an abolitionist, a defender of women's rights, and a leading figure in the women's fight for freedom and independence and the right to vote. On March the 7th, 1965, the Reverend Martin Luther King sent an urgent telegram to the Boston headquarters of the UUA, asking religious leaders and concerned citizens to join him in Selma, Alabama, where African Americans marching for their right to vote had been brutally attacked and many injured and hurt. About 500 Unitarian Universalists, including 1/5, 20% of all Unitarian Universalist ministers, went to Selma and Montgomery to participate in that civil rights campaign. There's no other denomination in America or no other religious group in America that had a higher representation percentage-wise at that march than Unitarian Universalist. And of course, there is the story of James Reed, who was a civil rights martyr. Morris Dees, a person who's done enormous good as chief legal counsel for the Southern Poverty Law Center, was a Unitarian Universalist. Pete Seeger, who wrote many wonderful songs of protest during the 1960s and other times, a Unitarian Universalist. There were many people, many Unitarian Universalist ministers and the people in those churches who did an enormous amount of work for social justice, and they will never get anywhere near any history book. I knew one of them quite well, a man named Charles White McGee, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Jacksonville, Florida. He was paralyzed from his waist down, but he left an early career as a newspaper man and became a Unitarian Universalist minister. He was at the Jacksonville church during the 60s. He marched, even though he had these limitations, he marched in every civil rights movement that occurred in that city, stood against the Vietnam War, put his life and reputation at risk, and he wasn't in great physical shape to begin with. Nobody will ever write a history book about him, but there were hundreds upon hundreds of people like that in the Unitarian Universalist movement during the 60s and 70s and beyond. But this congregation itself has been touched by people who are deeply involved in social justice work. UU minister Homer A. Jack, born 1916 and passed 1993, was a member of this congregation and fought for social justice. And the church, this church in fact, ran a speaker series named after him that ran through 2013. Among the key positions he held were executive director of the Committee for Sane Nuclear Policy, that's never been more needed than now, and Secretary General of the World Conference on Religion and Peace. Upon retiring, Reverend Jack was a member here where he focused on countering racism while sharing his wealth of knowledge about justice issues. So I have left out dozens upon dozens of people who I could have mentioned who are either ministers or representatives of our religious movement who have stood up for social justice issues. From the very beginning of the formation of our identity as a religious movement, we have been people who have stood up for principle and tried to influence the society around us. If not us, who? If not now, when? This work has never been more important than now. That is why I hope you can become aware of this team of people, this group of people who you saw before you today. I encourage you to seek them out. They'll hover right around here after the service to come talk to them and learn from them what you can do. I implore you to fill out the form that is in your order of service and to register your interest in some area to which these folks are dedicated. Thank you for your concern about this most important issue. And now